After I apologized and explained that I had an unexpected nosebleed, she told me I should have tried holding it in. What is the most Karen thing a Karen has done to you personally? When I worked at the Home Depot, a Karen told me that she didn't want any black men to install her flooring. I was in charge of arranging her order and told her that we don't select which individuals exactly will install her floor and that she'll get who she gets. She proceeds to have a fit about it, demands white installers, asks to speak to my manager. I'm so glad she did, because my manager's name was Dwayne and he was a real big black dude. Turns out she didn't want to speak to the manager. A Karen told me I couldn't work on my car in my own garage at noon because she didn't want my fast-looking car to influence her sons to be hooligans like you. I sure hope so. That lady is a nightmare to live by. She complains about our chickens all the time, calls the cops on our fireworks and go-karts even. The fireworks aren't legal most of the year, but it's not like we're setting off car alarms or anything. She calls animal control on our dog for barking occasionally. The list goes on. A Karen told me that I needed to leave the gym because I made her son feel like only fat people go to the gym. Actually, the weird thing was that he was like fit, but his mom was just being a witch. A Karen blew up at me for ignoring her son, who was trying to hit on me by saying konnichiwa and calling me kawaii tilde. I had never met him before and I am not Japanese. She called me a stuck-up racist and insinuated that I should be glad he was worldly enough to speak Asian to me. I just responded sorry, no English. They had previously heard me speaking English with my friend, I'm pretty sure, and walked away. I deliver appliances for Best Buy. We had a Karen call and complain that her fridge was not pre-cooled before it was delivered and that she had to wait for it to come down to temp. No one in the office was prepared for that one. When I worked at a bakery, Karen bought a chocolate cupcake and ate half of it. Karen then asked if she could return her half-eaten chocolate cupcake. Not because she didn't like it, but because she wanted to exchange it for half of a vanilla cupcake, something less decadent. Like most bakeries, we did not sell cupcakes by the half. She became offended when I asked if she wanted to purchase a vanilla cupcake. When I was working retail, this one woman had a big bag of coupons. Most of them were unusable because either they were expired or they were duplicates. She berated me because the system was rejecting most of the coupons. She called me stupid amongst other names, telling me I just wasn't doing it right. Then, as a typical Karen would, she asked to speak with my manager. My manager came and asked what the problem was. The Karen ranted about how incompetent I was because I didn't know how to scan a coupon. My manager looked at the coupons and the coupons were the problem, not me. My manager complained out the customer for being disrespectful for me and told the customer to leave the store. I hated working there, but I'm so grateful that I had managers that totally didn't go by the customer is always right rule and weren't afraid to stand up for their employees. That was just one of many incidents. Worked at a grocery store and a coworker put a 99-cent sticker on my shirt. We were 2 of maybe 5 employees, so we were all good friends and everything is funny when you gotta pass time on a shift, so I just left it there. Some Karen came through my line and asked me why I had a sticker on my shirt and I just kinda laughed it off. She asked if I thought it was funny and I was like, not really, but sorta. She asked if my coworker put it there, to which I responded yes. She told me she was going to speak to the store owner cause it was disrespectful to behave that way at work. She told me to call my manager and I did, but he was a super cool guy and knew this lady was a Karen. She talked to the store owner and my manager about firing me to no avail. She accomplished nothing and was a witch. The end. Came up to my register and asked for the price of a protein bar. Every item in the store had a physical price tag, because we didn't have scanners at the register. I took it from her, flipped it over, and let her know it was $2.49 before tax. She asked me how much the case would be. Normally we did discounts for cases, but they had to be ordered ahead of time, so I started explaining we couldn't do a discount unless. She cut me off aggressively and hissed, "I didn't ask for a discount." So I typed in $2.49 by 12, added tax, and told her the final price. She stared me down for a few minutes before asking me to get my manager. Once my manager arrived, she spent literally 10 minutes staring into me, describing me as the least helpful person ever, talking about my bad attitude, complaining about how awful and rude I was, etc. 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 I was working nearly full-time, 35.5 hours per week, and commuting to a school over an hour away 4 days a week. This lady took the time out of her day to break me down to the point I started crying. Thanks, Karen. I still remember you, hope you enjoyed your protein bar. Asked for my manager's personal cell phone number to complain that I, 7 months pregnant at the time, would not carry a refrigerator, that she had not paid for in the cost of her room, up to her second-story room. We did not have an elevator. Rather than just accept an upgrade for free because she didn't want to unpack her stuff. She refused to believe we had rooms without fridges and I was just being fat and lazy. When I refused to give her the cell phone number, she asked for corporate's number. I wrote it down on a sticky note with a smiley face. She came down later and asked to move rooms. I made her pay the difference. Left her card in the FPOS machine at the McDonald's I was managing as a teenager. The Karen rang me to say I needed to drive it out to her, that I ruined her night, ruined her family's night, owed her free food and that she'll be laying a formal complaint when I refused all of the above. She showed up 3/4 of an hour later with steam blowing out her ears asking for her card back. Last we heard from her. I used to work at a fast food and a theme park when I was 18. Karen held up the line cause she was demanding us to assemble a food for her daughter which we aren't allowed to do because we go by a menu. My daughter can't have that. Well, what can you do for me? Do you want her to starve? Are one of the most irritating lines I ever encountered. Working retail one afternoon and here comes Karen with a return. At first glance it's no big deal, just coming in to return a shirt. She walks up to the register, hands me the receipt to start processing and we exchange a pleasant greeting. I take the shirt out of the bag to examine it and it is beyond disgusting. There were brown sweat stains all over it, from the pits to the stomach to the shoulder. It looked like whoever wore it rolled in mud or some nonsense. I proceed to tell Karen that I cannot return the product because it had clearly been used and that only unused and resaleable items could be returned. Karen threw a fit, started screaming at me and accusing me of calling her a liar and whatnot. I hold up the shirt and point to the brown pit stains and say, Karen, can't you see this stain? Oh man, did that make it worse? She continues making a huge scene and demands to see the manager. Newsflash, Karen, I am the manager and I'm not budging. After 20 or so minutes of complaining she finally leaves saying she'll be complaining to corporate and getting me fired and blah blah blah. Fast forward a few days. A guy walks into the store, finds the first store associate he can and immediately asks for me by name. Uh-oh, here we go again. Anyway, my associate brings the guy over to where I'm standing and I politely greet him. The guy spends the next 10 minutes apologizing for his crazy wife Karen verbally abusing my staff and I a few days prior. Apparently, the guy went to the beach and did some type of CrossFit training class in the sand. Karen knows all of this, she was at the class with him. The guy ended up not liking the shirt for some reason and Karen thought she could pull a fast one on us by making a scene. Think again, Karen. I met plenty of Karens while working retail but there's one who stands out. Karen was Indian and had the most entitled attitude of anyone I've ever met. She was also a regular customer so we had to deal with her, at least twice a week. Karen's favorite pastime would be to literally fill a trolley with clearance items. These are a nightmare as you have to reduce the price on the till manually. Management were worried about scanning fraud and so had disabled the multiplication button on the till. This meant that each item has to be scanned and discounted individually. Once all of her items had been scanned and discounted, Karen would always kick up a fuss over the price, accusing us of overcharging her and demanding to see a manager. Some managers would give in to Karen, which meant voiding the transaction and starting over. If they told Karen to get lost, she'd complain about never shopping here again and storm out, leaving a full trolley of goods to put back. Thanks switch. Either way, the entire show would take at least an hour. There was a nice moment of karma for Karen however. One winter, we had an especially heavy snowstorm. Our policy in this case is to clear the car park access to the spaces closest to the door. We do this as very few people come out when it's snowing and it lets people park as close as possible. Not Karen though. Oh no. She pulls into the car park, drives into the uncleared section and tries to drive through a snowdrift, hitting a covered bollard in the process. She then clops into the store, demands to see the manager and proceeds to yell at him point blank. Apparently she was going to sue us and get every employee fired for not clearing her usual parking space of snow. Our manager responded by banning her from our store for being abusive towards staff. The mother of a girl I went to school with, comes into the shop I work at 5:58 p.m. We close at 6, lights are half off, front door is closed, roller door is half down, and goes, "Hi unworthy staff. I'm just running in to grab a few mallets." Before I can tell her not to, she's gone into the aisles. My manager comes over and goes, "What are you doing? We have to be done by 6. He went to find her. She's already got a basket full of things going. "Where are the capsicums? Can I just grab?" Keep in mind this is a fruit shop, half the items come off the shelves and into the cool room. My manager is literally the nicest guy ever and agrees to ring up her items as long as she pays card, as the cash is all packed into the safe. No, that's ridiculous, I only have cash. Unworthy staff, hon, can you tell him I only have cash? So I tell her the exact same thing, that we literally can't access the cash once the safe is closed for the day. "Oh. Well, can you just pay for it on your card and I'll get my daughter to pay you back?" I tell her that I can't do that. She starts shouting about how unprofessional we are, that the shop is awful because half the items are gone, we were closed, and that she's never coming back. Thank God. She avoids me at school events now, and I honestly feel sorry for her daughter. The stories I hear about this cow are shocking. Icing on the cake? Her name is actually Karen. I used to work retail, so I have come across my fair share of Karens. They were a huge reason why I went back to school and no longer work as a cashier. Anyways, one day while I was manning the registers with a few other co-workers of mine, I had a massive nosebleed right as I was finishing a transaction. I grabbed a tissue and quickly excused myself to run to the restroom so I could try to get it to stop bleeding. This meant that I couldn't say goodbye to Karen and give the little spiel about how I was oh so grateful for her shopping with us. Anyways, after about 10 minutes, I was finally able to get my nose back under control and headed back to the registers. I saw her waiting to the side with a scowl on her face, arms crossed over her chest, the whole 9 yards. She proceeded to scold me about how rude I was for not saying goodbye. After I apologized and explained that I had an unexpected nosebleed, she told me I should have tried holding it in and that the customer comes first. My brain was literally on error 404 after that. Was at the park with my daughter, she was 3 at the time. Her and a couple other kids started to play together. Then she attempted to use the monkey bars. She's a very adventurous child. About midway through, she fell. I didn't do anything because she's fallen before and I want her to learn to get back up on her own and not be scared to try again. Anyway, one of the boys was about to get on the monkey bars too, until I heard a woman run toward him screaming to stop. She picked him up and looked at my daughter. Told her it wasn't smart of her to go on the monkey bars if she wasn't fully ready because then others might get that same idea. That's when I got up and went to my daughter's defense. Sternly told the woman to not speak to her that way and it's no fault of hers that she wasn't scared to try something new. She took her kid and left. Doctor here. I used to work in a public night shift service, kinda like an emergency room but for non-emergencies, to keep the hospitals clear of white codes, so anything from a fever to a sore throat, to prescriptions for urgent treatments. A Karen walks in at 3 a.m. asking for a prescription for hypertension drugs, which isn't unusual, as old people, more often than not, but she looked like 55, sometimes don't notice they're running low. Anyway, the law, not a rule, not my decision, the law, states that this service can only write prescriptions for potentially life-threatening conditions, drugs for a maximum of 72 hours coverage, so if you take 1 pill a day, I can only prescribe you a single blister. Here we don't have bottles, but blisters, and while I'm writing the prescription Karen casually mentioned that she was insomniac, and while cleaning the medicine cabinet she realized she was down to her last full blister. My pen stops, I ask her to repeat, "Full blister?" "Yeah," so I take the prescription, tear it in half, then again. Then I throw it in the bin, explaining her the law. She gets mad, starts yelling and threatened to call the cops. Go ahead. Cops came, and she triumphantly announced that I'm refusing to treat her. I explain the situation, and they ask her if it's true that she has a full blister, and she of course, being a Karen who is always right no matter what, confirms it. The cops look at her, still with a look of triumph, waiting for them to arrest me, then at me, then ask her politely to leave, as I'm in the right. She's livid. The day after my boss called me and cracked up cause she went there during the day to talk to the manager, and she, my boss, told her the exact same thing. Never saw her again in there, weirdly enough. My sister-in-law is the biggest Karen the first have ever met, complains in almost every restaurant we have gone to, but this one time they were moving house and my bro asked me to help. I was staying at their place for the delivery truck that was to arrive early in the morning, we were having drinks and my mattress was on the living room floor. At around 1:15 I said I think I'm going to go to bed. She replied, "Are you kicking me out of my own living room?" Not realizing she is crazy, I joke, "I guess I am." She said no one does that, and even though she had finished her last drink, made herself 2 cups of tea. She didn't go to bed till after 2:30. She told me the next morning she stayed up to show no one tells her what to do. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more videos. Click the right box for the Radio TTS playlist and let us know what the next video should be about.